For those that don't know who I am, my name is Emily Whitehead. I'm a 21st century leader, and for the last 2 years, I've been building my business and I've forgotten about myself, and it's time to remember myself. I'm transforming my body, and I've invited you guys all along for the journey. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about something different. I'm going to talk about autism. It's something that's very, very close to me, and in my research of autism and how it's affected me, I've learned a lot of nutritional facts, and that's helping me on my weight loss journey. But when I was telling my story earlier, I had brought out my son a couple of times, and he's autistic, and I've mentioned that we've done some things with him. This lighting is crap, isn't it? So, la 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 la. That's a little better, right? Someday I'm going to get this whole thing down here. So if you can hear me, go ahead and tap on the screen so I can see some hearts, because I'd hate to talk to myself. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Carrie. Okay. So if you want to share this with your followers, you're going to get some important information. I really encourage it. If you're not subscribed to me already, I absolutely encourage you to, because I'm pretty awesome and we do some fun things here. Welcome, Jackie. Welcome. So I just want to give it a couple more seconds because I know a couple of people had wanted to be on here. So we have Carrie in the house and we have Jackie in the house. We got Hawaii and we have Cleveland, Georgia. Yeah. Thank you, Carrie. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. My journey, basically, hey Rusty, thank you for joining. When I was 18 years old, 19 years old, I got married. It's been 20 years. It's been a while. I still got my memory. Okay. And we had a son 2 years later. And we had wanted to have a lot of kids. We actually wanted to have 2 of our own, and then we wanted to adopt a bunch more. And when I had my son, it was really surprising because I never expected to have a son, but he grew on me and I loved him a lot. And he was so adorable, but we noticed very, very early on that he would look off into space a lot, and he just wasn't as communicative as a baby should be. And my mom, right off, she's like, I wonder if he's autistic. And we took him to the doctors, and the doctor's like, no, he's totally fine. He's totally fine. And he started talking when normal kids start talking, but he was still just a little bit slow, like glazed. He didn't want you to touch him, but he wanted to be wrapped really, really tight at night. He would only sleep if he was really wrapped really tight. And so we started working with things. We were told that he had sensory integration disorder, and we started working with special children's clinic. And then at 3 years old, he stopped talking completely. He wouldn't say a word. And it was just the craziest thing. And we had to end up teaching him sign language, and it was heartbreaking because he would have these outbursts. You would have to do these basketball holds on him because he would just have these bursts of rage, and we didn't have any idea what it was. We would go to special children's clinics where we would talk about what was going on, and we'd work with other parents. They would teach us things like, brushing our son. So, when you get sent home with a newborn, they give you this little sponge, and on the opposite side are these like really tiny bristles. Well, people with sensory integration, which is part of autism, you would brush them and it would just kind of calm them. And as he grew, we would have to compress his joints because he couldn't feel the impact that normal people feel. So he would do crazy stuff like jump off the top of the stairs. And, it was heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking going through it. And it's very stressful going through it. But as you learn, these kids are so, so beautiful. And there are things that help. And I'm going to get to that. But as we're going to these special children's clinics, the therapists are telling us, oh my gosh, you do this and you do that. We're going to have to start working on that. That's so cool. You guys already know all this stuff. And that was really frustrating because we were going to them for help. And instead of help, they were using us as role models. And so we weren't getting any of our questions answered. And it was just crazy. It was really crazy. So I would get calls. My son's been in the school system since he was 3. And I would get calls from school that he bit this child, or he bit that child, or he punched this child, or he won't leave his shoes on, or he constantly would chew on his shirt, and his shirt would just be drenched. And I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know how to stop that kind of stuff. It obviously wasn't okay. And at a very early age, I learned that not all parents of bullies are bad parents, because my son was a bully and we were really good parents. We have a daughter who she's a people pleaser, and she constantly got good grades, the teacher's pet. And if you looked at these 2 children, you would think they had completely different parents. And it was so frustrating. So we would do stuff like we would send him to school with a washcloth so he could chew on the washcloth instead of his shirt. And the teachers would take it away because it was not sanitary. Or we would put a rubber band on his hand, and we would on his wrist, and we'd tell him just to pop that anytime he started to get frustrated, and then that would focus his energy somewhere other than busting out on some other kid or busting out on the teacher, and they would take it away because it wasn't safe. Or we'd give them gum to chew, and they weren't allowed to have gum in school. Or, like, I was constantly fighting with these teachers, like, why can't he just leave his shoes by the door? He's in a special needs class, so it's not like you're not accommodating to these other kids. And instead of trying to force him to do something, why don't we get past the problem, accommodate it so that he can learn? So the first couple years of his life, he wasn't learning anything because everybody was just focused on his problems. And as a parent of somebody with autism, it's stressful and frustrating, and you get so caught up in living the day-to-day life that you forget sometimes that they can't do these things, they can't process these things, or they process them differently. And so a lot of times you're finding that you're going to have to take a time out. Absolutely. You're going to have to take a time out because you'll go crazy. You'll snap. At one point, I could honestly understand. This is sad. If I cry, I'm sorry, guys. This is just a real scope. Okay, at one point, my son was so angry, and I was so angry at him for lashing out on his sister that at one point I could understand how a mom could kill their children, because nobody loves their children like a mom. But you don't know what to do all the time. And it's hard. It's really hard. And I've never beat my kids or anything like that, but I could understand where people would snap, because the things that go on when you have a special needs children, it's hard, and you don't have the support that you deserve. You don't have the education that you need. So when he turned 6 years old, we finally decided to put him on medication. And we had fought this decision so long because he's our baby, and we didn't want him on medicine, Medicine is like, it's going to be a lifelong thing. So we broke down and we took him to a doctor that could prescribe him something. And the doctor, at this point, he still wasn't diagnosed with autism. The doctor diagnosed him with bipolar, and he put him on Depakote. And this is when I started my education. So Depakote is an anti-seizure medication. And what I learned is people that have bipolar, people that have autism, they have these rages, okay? Thank you. Appreciate that. They have these rages where they lash out, they bite people, they throw things at people, they scream at the top of their lungs. And this is like an internal seizure that they can't control. And so all this time that I was trying to deal with these behaviors that he was doing, he couldn't control them. So how am I going to help him control them, right? So after that, we ended up moving. We were in Nevada at the time. We moved to Georgia, and he went into this school that did not know how to handle him at all. And he ended up going on antipsychotics, and then he couldn't sleep, so we had to put him on sleeping medication, and he wasn't eating, and he was already skinny, so we had to put him on stuff that would up his appetite so that he would eat. And then he would only eat junk food, so I was constantly giving him burgers and fries and nachos, and I knew it wasn't healthy, but he was so skinny and he wouldn't eat. Like, he's not a kid that you can just say, this is what's for dinner, that's what you're going to eat, and you're not leaving the table until you eat it, because he would sleep on his plate and not care. And he didn't feel the hunger pains. And the more he didn't eat, the angrier he got. And he started talking. I never said that again. He started talking again. And he started talking on such a level that he would get called into the principal's office, and the principal would call me and say, I could take your son out for coffee, because he has a conversation like adults. Like, I asked him if he knew why he was in the principal's office, and he told me, well, yeah, I can be a little rambunctious at times, and I know I was being that one then, and I know I should really watch my P's and Q's, but sometimes people are just so stupid, I can't handle it. And he's in second grade, So he's always had a better connection with adults. And when we moved and we put him on these antipsychotics and stuff, yeah, he's great. Now he's 17, he's almost 18, and he gets along a lot better in the world, because that filter, that rude filter, that matter-of-fact filter, it's okay in the real world, right? But anyway, when we put him on these antipsychotics and stuff, he was at the point where, this little kid, he said something, and it was about racism, I think. And Alex didn't agree. And he told him that he needed to apologize to the little girl he was talking to. And the boy wouldn't do it. And so Alex, he, without any kind of emotion whatsoever, he says, I'm going to have to go kill him, Mom. And I'm like, what do you mean? That's so heartbreaking, because we're not a violent family, and we don't teach that. We love everybody, right? Whether we agree with what they believe or what they don't, we love people because we're all the same. And he's like, well, Mom, he's not treating people right. He's not making the right choice. And I gave him the opportunity to make the right choice, and he's refusing to do it. And I know nobody else in the world is going to make him do it. So it's my job to do it. And it's just like all these things that are going on in their head. How, as a parent that has never dealt with this kind of stuff, do you deal with this kind of stuff? So that's when he went on the antipsychotics. And there was a point in time where I didn't want to go to sleep, because I heard a commotion down the hallway, and my daughter was coming out to tell me something, and I looked back, and my son had stopped her and just gave her this look like he was going to kill her. And I knew if I went to sleep, I might wake up to him having stabbed my daughter. And that's not something that I wanted to do. So this was like a huge roller coaster. And wow, if you're going through something with your son or your daughter with autism, I feel for you. There is some stuff that you can do. So I started looking at different things. Yeah. I started looking at different things that we could do, because we were just adding more medication, more medication, more medication. And then I started hearing these things like people that are on this drug are never allowed to be in the military, because there are episodes of psychotic breaks in their future, even after they get off of it. And I'm like, my son's on this, so what's it doing to him? And so I started looking into natural remedies, okay? And at this time, I think I found this documentary. It's called The Beautiful Truth. And it's a documentary about this kid who was homeschooled, and he stumbled upon something called the Gerson therapy, which is a cancer therapy. So I started researching that, and I found another documentary by that. It's called The Gerson Therapy. And then I bought the book, and I decided, what do I have to lose? Well, about that time when I was thinking about implementing all of this stuff, I had to quit my job. I was a manager for Walgreens, and I was constantly getting calls. It got so bad to the point where I'm going to go ahead and say this, because if you're dealing with this, you got to know that you're not alone. My son was in class, and they would put him in solitary confinement to calm him down. And basically, if you're out of control, you would go in here, and when you calm down, you could come out. But that didn't work for him, and it doesn't work for everybody. And it would make him more and more crazy, and he would do everything to get out. He would take his shoes off, he would throw them out the window, he would scream at the teachers, and I was constantly getting called from my job to leave. As a manager, you can't leave. There always has to be a manager on duty. And so instead of jeopardizing my work, I went ahead and quit. When it got to this point, my son, at one point, he actually blacked out. We talked about this the other day. He blacked out because he was so angry when he was in the solitary confinement that he actually took a crap in the middle of the room, and that got him out. And when that got him out, he kept doing it because he knew that was going to get him out. It's like something twisted in his head that he had to solve this problem because you can't lock him up, and that's how he was going to get locked up. And I'm mortified, like people judge parents based off of their kids' behaviors. So I have one daughter who the teachers, are constantly giving stars and acclimates, and then this other one who is biting everybody and punching them. And in all fairness, he would warn them. He would tell them, "You're irritating me, leave me alone. You're irritating, leave me alone." And then whack, he would just pop them. So I had to quit my job, and I wanted to be home with him. And right after I decided to be home with him and help more, my husband lost his job, which means we lost all of our insurance. And even though I was trying to get him off the medication, it wasn't even an option anymore. I had to find something. So we started with the Gerson Therapy. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's basically organic juicing on a massive, massive level. And you take out all the proteins, you eat no salt, no butter. You're allowed Ezekiel bread twice a week, I believe. And you take about 16 juices a day. And it can't even be juiced in a regular juicer because the way that it spins kills some kind of nutrient in it. So I had to get like this really, really expensive juicer, and I was constantly in the kitchen and constantly shopping. There was no life whatsoever, but it was working. He was the way he was when he was on his medication. However, yeah, super mom. However, he had a personality. So if you have somebody on medication, you'll notice a lot of times, yeah, they sit there. Kids with ADD and ADHD, you get them to sit down, you get them to do their work, but they have no personality. They're not joking. Their little kid is gone. And that's something that was so heartbreaking as well. And so he was having all the successes that he was having on medication without taking his personality away. So my son, he started to be my beautiful son again. And we were able to, he actually got kicked out of public school, and he was in a corrective school. He's been kicked out of school twice and in a corrective school twice. And when he was in the corrective school, we started the juicing, and he became the model student. He became the student that would give the other student tours and mentor them and keep them on track. And this worked fine and dandy until high school. And in high school, he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. It's a lot of work. His name's Alexander Sebastian. So he just decided that, and he sat me down. He's always been very upfront with how he feels. And so he's like, "Mom, I know the juices work, but I'm not going to drink them anymore." Now go back to when I said he wouldn't eat and I told him, you have to eat this or you're just going to sit there. He would just sit there. And at this point, he was 6 feet tall. He's now 6'5". He would just, I can't force him to do it. I can't force him to do it. So back in 2005, I had seen this news report on ABC with John Quinones, and I started looking for that. And it was on this product that basically it lowered all of the free radicals in your body, bringing it down to where it needed to be. And I knew that that did kind of the same thing as what the juices did, but it was just a pill. So if I could just find this thing, I would be able to try it on him, and hopefully I could get him to take that, right? And in the meantime, he's back in trouble. And at one point, we had to go to court because he would purposely irritate people. And one kid decided to hold his arms down while the other kid duct taped him. And so the kid duct taped him from his arms all the way up, got to his mouth, was almost to his nose before the teacher could pull him off. To this day, he won't tell me who that kid is, and him and my husband had to go to court because he knows I would have killed the kid. Mama bear syndrome, right? But he's starting all these troubles again. And I'm searching. And my girlfriend the whole time, she's like, hey, Emily, I got something you got to see. And I'm like, no, I don't want to see it. I know what I'm looking for. Kept putting her off. Well, she wanted to show me that ABC primetime, right? So when I finally watched it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And then my son tells me, no, Mom, I'm not going to take it. I'm done. And that just broke my heart all over, because he could do so much if he could learn how to work with the things that happen. So I bribed him, and it was a network marketing company. And I told him, I said, well, Alex, you want to start driving, you want to get a job, this thing has a car, and if you need help, I can help you, but you can't sell something that, you don't know how it works. And he's like, okay, I'll use it for 2 weeks, Mom. I said, okay, fine. No, I said, you have to do it for a month. And he said, okay, we'll do it for a month. So I got it, and he started taking it, and after 2 weeks, he said, okay, Mom, I didn't think this was going to work, but it's working. I feel it. And I said, what do you mean, Alex? And he said, well, you know how the juices, they used to make it so that I could handle stupid people, and if they were being retarded, I could just brush it off my shoulders and not listen to them, and I wouldn't rage on them. And I said, yeah. And he's like, it's the same thing. Like, I still hear what they're saying, but I don't get so angry that I have to punch them. And so that was a bonus for me. So I started doing more and more research on this, and I started talking to the doctors that had worked to get this out. And I found out that this thing, once you're on it for 90 days, it produces glutathione in you up to like 300% more than what you normally do. And I found out that people that have autism have a very, very, very low glutathione level. And I just, even to this day, he's been on it for 2 years. To this day, I still see daily improvements. And if you looked at him now, you would have no idea that there was anything ever wrong with him. So I'm just going to tell you some things that you can do. And and then I'll take you guys' questions and answer whatever I can. So one thing I want to let you guys know is what I looked at. It's abcliveit.com, Liveit.com. Okay, good. I'm glad it's so helpful. I'm glad. So that's the product that I was looking at. And the way that it's presented, it doesn't even do it justification, because it turns on things in your body. It gets your body producing antioxidants by themselves, so you don't have to take it. It gets your body functioning the way it's supposed to, so that it accepts the nutrients that you put into it. The glutathione is not something that's covered in there, and that's something that is major, major, major in people with neurological things that go on. It's called a NRF2 activator. When they broadcast this, they didn't even know that it activated NRF2. And what that is a protein in your cells that gets your cells to work properly. And that's something that when you turn 20 years old, it stops working like it's supposed to. So it gets it working like it's supposed to. But you can go to nerf2.com, okay? And you could either type in autism, or you can just go to nerf2.com /? Lowercase p equals 230. So if you can see that. And that'll bring up the article that talks about how they're studying how NRF2 works on neurological diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, stuff like that. And then when you go down to the bottom, it does mention autism, and they're looking to see how it correlates. Then if you go to another website, it's called PubMed, like public, P-U-B, med, like medicine, med.gov, and type in NRF2 and autism. You find 3 studies that have already been done. And then there's another thing called oxidative stress. Okay, and oxidative stress is basically the rusting of your body from the inside. And if you can lower that, your body's allowed to behave the way it's supposed to in so many different levels. So oxidative stress is actually connected to hundreds of diseases. So if you go into PubMed.gov and you type in oxidative stress, autism, you're going to find over 200 studies that have been done on that. So if you could lower the oxidative stress, it works really, really good in autistic people, okay? For those of you that, because the person that was specifically talking to me about this is in Pakistan, and this isn't available over in Pakistan. It's available in the United States, Canada, Mexico, some other places, Philippines, Hong Kong, going into UK, and it will be eventually, but until then you still need some help, right? So when I was doing my research, I heard of something called hyperbaric chamber oxygen therapy. Australia, yes. And basically it's an oxygen therapy, and it's expensive. It's expensive, and you do need to do your research because there are some side effects that have been reported, like nausea, some other things. If you want to read more into it, you could look up Jenny McCarthy. Her son is autistic, and she had a lot of success with that, with him. For me, it wasn't an option because it was way, way, way too expensive. Japan, yeah, it was way too expensive for me. But it was something that I looked into, and had I had the money, I definitely would have done it. Another thing we used when we were transferring over from the medication to help him sleep, to calm his nerves, was melatonin. Melatonin is something you can get at your local store, and it just calms them enough to sleep, because a lot of kids with autism have sleeping disorders. They don't go to sleep. That was something, I've never heard that. I'll have to look that up, but something to look at, definitely. And the melatonin you can get in, 1 milligram, 3 milligrams, 9 milligrams. And with him, I would fluctuate. So I would start at 1, and I would have to go up, and I would take him off for a week. But I mean, you do that with medication anyway. And it's something that's not going to have all those crazy side effects, and it is going to give them the sleep they need. And if they're sleeping, they're not as agitated. So just doing that actually helps a lot. Another thing is our brain is mostly made up of fat, and we don't get a lot of nutrients into that. So they've had a lot of positive studies with omega-3. So if you can get a lot of omega-3s into them and supplement them with that, it actually has some positive effects on autism symptoms. Another thing that people have had success with is taking casein, which is a milk protein, taking that out of their diet, and also taking gluten out of their diet. It's not as hard as it sounds. In the world that we live in, it's hard because everything's processed, everything has gluten, everything has milk. But if you get back to basics, and if you go with things that are grown from the earth, it's not that hard to do. It's actually pretty easy. Just look into clean eating, and that usually will take care of a lot of your issues. Yeah, and another thing, the last thing that I had success with was I would put him on, it's called Calms, Calms. It's a magnesium. And the reason that I like Calm is because they flavor it. You could either get cherry or you could get lemon, but you just mix it in water. And I actually still use it. I use it for my muscle cramps, stuff like that. But with autism, it helps them to calm them down a lot. So remember I was saying that when he was on the Depakote, he would have these rages and stuff that he just couldn't handle. So the melatonin would help him with that, and also the magnesium, but the magnesium doesn't make him tired. So that is my story. If you have any questions, I would love for you to reach out to me. I love, love, love helping people because there's not enough help out there as far as I'm concerned. So you can go ahead and email me. It's in my profile. But before I go, do you guys have any questions or comments that you want me to answer? Save it to YouTube. Oh, this right here? Yeah, I need to make myself a YouTube account, but I do have it on Catch Me, and I did record it on my phone, so I'll definitely do that. Anyone else? That wasn't as tough as I thought it was going to be because last night when I was going through everything and all these memories, like I've only told you a little fraction of the memories that we've gone through, but oh my gosh, it was so overwhelming. And you forget about it. You do forget about bad stuff and you remember good stuff, and that's a good thing. Okay, awesome. I'll definitely look at that. All right, guys. Well, I have to go and pick out some gym clothes because I got to work my butt off today so that I can weigh in tomorrow. And I'm going to be on a little bit. Oh my gosh, honestly, the Protandim, I think everybody, it's helped in every aspect. I got it for my son, okay? And it's helped me. Like, my knees used to hurt all the time. They don't hurt. My mom has diabetes, and she's taken her insulin. Like, she's got diabetes to the point where she lost her leg to diabetes. It's taken her insulin from 100 units all the way down to, I think at one point she was at 35. And it's helped her so much. It's helped my husband. My daughter's the only one gets sick, and she doesn't take it. And she takes it when she's sick because she knows it works. But honestly, if I could have everybody in the world on it, I would. It's like even if I wasn't associated with it at all, I would definitely promote it to everybody because it's safe. It doesn't interact with any medications. It's processed in a totally different organ than where most of your medications are processed. And unless you've had like an organ transplant, you can use it, you know, and it works all the time. Like, they have people trying to disprove that it works, and they can't. And studies are coming out all the time. And all the studies aside, whatever, it works for me. And so obviously, you know, if I like a movie, I'm going to tell you I like the movie. If I like a drink, I'm going to tell you I like a drink. I went to breakfast this morning with my husband at Cup and Saucer down the road in Loganville. Best breakfast, little tiny, greasy spoon, hole-in-the-wall diner. They don't pay me to say that, but I'm not going to recommend something that I don't believe in. So I hope this was helpful. I love you guys. I thank you for your support. And if this helped you, if you think it'll help somebody else, share it with them. If you want the replay, I'll give you my catch and give you the replay there, and I'll definitely put it up on my YouTube.